welcome you all to the panel discussion. Starting with you, Ms. Sakhi, do you think interconnected factories, buildings, or sensors driven by data could offer a solution for green and sustainable future?
I think the answer lies in the question. Yes, it does. So basically, everything starts with the measurement that we should. I mean, we are past the era wherein we are thinking that something will happen. It has to be backed by huge amount of data, cleaned, analyzed, and put into perspective. Now, when you have interconnected things, the data is amalgamation of all the aspects. It is a continuous process of one factor affecting the other factor. I always like to cite an example of human body here. If you have a very good hand, but it is not interconnected, it is not only in the control of the other things happening with your body, but it is also not. So it is not only about ensuring that you have the data, but it is also about growing your business. And this is why I think that having interconnected is the most important thing alongside collecting the data.
I think what Saki mentioned is absolutely critical. That interconnectivity is what will really give us, as you rightly put it, data is the new oil. So, it really gives us something to work on. So data analytics then gives us where there are wastes in the system. See, I look at definitely from 2 points of view. One is, of course, the greening. Secondly is, as I mentioned when I spoke, everything that we do, the customer is centric to it. Okay. And today the customer is becoming more and more aware of green, number one. But number two, the customer will only pay for the product that the customer gets. The customer is not willing to pay for inefficiencies. And the only way to strip off the flab is to have data, to know where it is, to identify it, and to gradually be able to move it out. And this is where it is right across the supply chain. Dr. Saxena, I just take half a minute to respond to what you said about greening the supply chain. It's part of the process that is being done. We have an initiative that started 14 years ago, and we call it Beyond Sourcing, which means we go beyond the transaction in helping the supply chain. So right from the SMEs who supply us. So green sources is the first thing. As I mentioned, there are 80 of our supplier partners who are already Green Co certified. And that was just an aside because you made a statement on that. So I thought I'll just respond. Now, data is what helps us to drive. So whether we use data for process parameter control, we use it in order to identify points at which designs can be optimized. We use it to see where material yield can be optimized, to see how we can reduce the amount of rejection and rework. All this basically finally is leading us back to a green sustainable manufacturing.
Thank you, Mr. Jarvan. We are moving towards green sustainability. Dr. Yogendra, would you like to add? You were talking about the green purchasing of product is difficult, and you are analyzing the perspective in that regard.
See, if I go to the market, for example, you take Big Basket or Reliance or anything else, there is not even a single product, even from FMCG, maybe Mr. Durban will add it to that, is not available for an Indian buyer on the shelf. And we have a eco mark since about early 90s in this country. Ministry totally silent. If you go to Ministry of Environment and Forest and CPCB and ask them, do you know about eco mark? I think 90% of the ministry staff will say they have no idea what is eco mark. So in which direction we are moving? Why ESG, why nets not narrow when we cannot look after our, for example, garbage disposal? Segregation of garbage is missing in this country. We are working, but how much? This is the first concept. Water Act is 1974. Why rivers are polluted? Air Act is 1981. Daily air is polluted. So what are we looking for? Why we talk of sustainability and smart cities and bullet trains, for example? Basic things are missing. The hygiene concept was missing. Thanks to COVID-19, at least we are a little bit conscious about hygiene. So sustainability, environment, green purchasing, green, eco-friendly, environment-friendly, When I go to his primary school, I say that these are all buzzwords, and sometimes I feel like that I must change my name from YK Saxena to eco-friendly Saxena or eco Saxena, or use a green shirt and say green Saxena. This is what is happening. Like if you can know the spelling of horoscope, you are a palm reader, you are a astrologer. This is happening in the field of environment.
And thank you, Dr. Yogen. That was very insightful. Mr. Sandeep, what you would like to say on it? Because they are talking about data, they are talking about green.
Dr. Sakana, just a point of view. Okay, now definitely there are, what we have been seeing for in the past, whether it's a water law or whether it is, how the environment is now moving. Let me give you a company perspective now, how the world is moving. Since I've been in this field for last 16 years as a chief sustainability officer, and whatever I've learned over the years, and as I speak today, yes, under all the benchmarks, Tech Mahindra is rated number one in the world. It is not only in India, but rated number one in the. It's a proud moment for us Indians, and that there's one company which is there in Dow Jones Sustainability Index rated among all other parts of the world. So coming from an experience, I think so. In last specific 2 to 3 years, there is a drastic change in the way the companies are behaving. And how does it matter? First aspect is very important, which is also coming out from a regulatory perspective, is saying that how do you disclose your data? Saki, you mentioned, the data, how, and Zohan, you mentioned whether BRSR coming into the picture. Yesterday again, I was in one of the webinars in Mumbai. So they are serious. They want to capture the data right. And then also, if you have taken the targets, how do you meet those targets? And to add to that, there is also an assurance agency. So GK, what also happens is that you have to get your data assured by a third party. So no matter what you do, a third party has to come and validate your data that you're submitting. And then only your annual report comes. Like if it's your financial report, today a work of an assurance is much more difficult for me than getting a financial approval as such. So this is how the world has changed. Now, specifically coming to the manufacturing, again, yesterday I was hearing green, whether it was green iron, green aluminum, all those aspects. And these people were saying, this was from Vedanta, I was hearing yesterday, saying that nobody in the world could have ever thought this. But today, it is becoming a norm. And I was reading about it just before coming over here again, was that my scope, where I'm looking at the scope 3 aspect, that is basically saying is that this data is how as a manufacturer, I'm getting this raw material. Is that a way where this raw material is eco-friendly or not, and how much of eco-friendliness? And then at an output level, how I'm transporting, how I'm looking at a perspective of saying that is plastic used in the packaging or not, and how do I remove that? Means today everybody, you would say, is in packaging. Means you, whether you're traveling, I was traveling yesterday in Vistara, you start seeing that they have started using eco-friendly. Gone are the days when it was all plastic, and the world has changed. And I think so it's changing for better. If we are taking the targets of say 2030, government has taken that target of 2030, looking at almost 500 gigawatt of RE. And I'm sure those, the steps are in place to see that. And we've already achieved, I think it's about 350 odd megawatts. So I think so the steps are in place to see that how we are progressing. And one day or the other, somebody has to take that step. And today, I think so we are all there.
Can I add a line here?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Chandra, appreciating that you are CSO since last 16 years you are working. I was in industry for last 40 years. I was in UN, I was in CPCB. I was a GRI member also for G3 and G4 generation. I have seen environment from all the 4 sides of the table. How many of you, for example, Tech Mahindra or Tata or Ambuja or Godrej, we can count these organizations. I use one word which you totally neglected. I say one of us, the senior so-called the large corporate, must adopt 4, 5 medium and 10 small enterprises, develop them for greening your supply chain. That direction, not even a single organization. Even I tried in my last assignment with Tata Power. The reason is environment is such a tough subject and such an easy subject. What I say, how you put the wrong thing in the right direction is environment. We are showing good pictures. The day MD will be active, And he will say to all 10 departmental heads, finance, supply chain, marketing, purchase, that you have to listen to your CSO. Otherwise, you will not get the next increment. That will change the scenario of sustainability or ESG. Reporting is not important. The day we submit our income tax return, we get either a memo that this is lacking or you get your refund. What is happening to you, BRS? RS? It is just filing and set. Nobody can judge it. You need people like me, Zurban, or you go there, sit there and see that out of these 20, these 10 things are lacking.
100% agree to you, Dr. Saxena, 100% what you're saying. Until, the CSO is given that mandate, things are not going to be that simple. And in fact, if you look at few of the, I would not name the banks which have gone down, but still, you would see that the CSOs have not been given that kind of mandate to see that what went right or what went wrong.
Anna, you are lucky you are CSO. There are some big organizations where a corporate communication person is CSO. A person who was not having any job close to MD is a CSO and looking after CSR by HR department. So that when this will happen, you will only write ESG report. You will not do anything else. Anyway, no problem. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you, Dr. Yogendra and Sandeep, for sharing this deep-rooted perspective that has to be analyzed. Mr. Zarwan, there is a question from Priyanka. Is net zero is only about emissions or isn't beyond?
It's way beyond emissions. One is, of course, you have to control your emissions. You have to have alternative ways of, fueling and being able to work in order to reduce the emissions. Plus, we have to see whatever we can do in terms of greening in order to counter it. So again, I think this goes back to what Dr. Saxena is talking about. It's not just what one company can do. We have to actually do in order to compensate for the large amounts which are not doing or not able to do. So that is where that whole, carbon sequestering and the whole process comes in. So we have to look at it in a larger scale. In fact, listening to Dr. Yogendra, I recall our Mr. S.P. Godrej. He passed away 2 decades ago. He used to say, he was a person very, very concerned about this, apart from, he was really a very hardcore CSR person at heart. He would say that an island of greenery and prosperity in an ocean of poverty is a big worry, because there is a lot to be done. We need to be able to spread that faster and faster. So when we talk net zero, we are of course, for whatever we are producing in terms of the carbon footprint, to be able to counter that, but to be able to go beyond that as well. So reduce, to neutralize, and go beyond, so that we can be net zero and positive.
I think Ms. Bianca would have got the answer. Mr. Jarwan, you were talking about using technology to reduce environment impact. So what challenges is the manufacturing sector facing while implementing sustainable manufacturing practices to optimize operations?
If I would put it, there are 3, really speaking. And this is where what Dr. Yogendra talked about. One is the greening of the supply chain. We can do, but we need to get from green sources. We need to, for example, use green logistics. We need to have a green consciousness, because there are initial costs involved, which is where, people tend to hesitate on it, especially the smaller ones. So one factor is building that consciousness, greening that entire chain, and getting over that initial part. The second one is the availability of technology. It is constantly evolving. I talked, for example, about low temperature chemicals. Now, if you look at the process of pre-treatment of steel, when I joined the industry 36 years ago, it used to be something where you could not stand in that area for beyond a certain point. Your eyes would water, your nose would run, and we would say the best way to clear a block nose was to stand over there. From there, which was the dip phosphating system, where we use chemical acids, to then move to phosphating using sprays, using proprietary chemicals, reducing the pH, the harshness of the chemicals. Today, then we went to low temperature. Today, we've gone to conversion based. We've gone to nano coating. Nano coating has completely removed the heating part of it, reduced the amount of sludge that is generated. So your waste to landfill is going down. Anyway, we had already started reducing that part of it, but today it is negligible. So we've reduced the heat factor, we've reduced the effluent, the sort of sludge factor. So we are able to have a better process. These are ways in which we have used technology, for example. Then solvents. We used to use liquid paints once on a time. From there, we have now moved to solventless powders. So I'm just giving you a few examples. Use of forklifts to move from diesel forklifts to today using electric. Not only that, technology there is also used to be able to help the customer use that product in the most energy efficient way. So we are able to, by monitoring it, using IIoT, the interconnectivity of data, which we were talking about earlier, to be able to give the customer a feedback that, look, this is use of technology in terms of the fact that today ACs consume less power, refrigerators consume less power. These are factors which are going to contribute in small bits. You're not going to get a silver bullet. But each of these is critical in order to be able to do it. And the last factor is we need to be training and reskilling our workforces because the demands on them are very different. So the skill that was required by an operator on the shop floor at that point of time to the skill that is required now is completely different. Because today the machines, the technology has taken over that initial manual skill, that dexterity that was required. And today his skill is to understand, be able to program the machine and be able to keep it running. Okay. Another aspect, for example, use of technology, you're using digitization and sensor to do condition-based maintenance and monitoring of the performance of the machine. You're able to get better quality because you're able to monitor the performance parameters. These are factors that are adding in. So, for example, we have a program called DigiNext, where we identify batches, we train them, we give them projects across the organization in different businesses. So they get exposure to different businesses. It's like all-round training, and they get the necessary reskilling. So these are the three factors which I believe play a role. Technology is going to keep evolving, and we will have to gradually keep pace. Yes, I would like to add one thing more, is that you cannot have a greenfield project every time. So you have to also think in terms of how we can use a brownfield project and make it more and more interconnected. And there are ways of doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Marulia. That was quite knowledge sharing. Talking about the sustainable practices, what opportunity do you see to integrate sustainable practices that might reduce environmental impact?
Having such amazing participants in the panelists, I wouldn't talk about the technology much. I am going to talk about the biggest opportunity that all of us have. It's creating awareness. YK sir has been talking about the lack in the processes. I see more than intention, there is a lot of awareness. How many of us know that there are sensors which can be deployed in the construction itself, in the, say, walls of the buildings, which can collect the data? How many of us know that when it comes to IoT, are all your IoT, so every solution that you are having is smart or smarter, right? But it is also not integrating very well with each other. So, for example, we were traveling from Pune to Goa. We have EV and we wanted to charge it. At every charging station, I had to install a new app for every charging station which has been installed. And in every app, I had to put different money, right? So this is a good technology. This is a very progressive technology, but it is not an integrated technology. So when we choose the technology, what kind of awareness as a buyer we should have, this is the awareness opportunity that I see, especially for the communities like Impact, the community that I come from. We think together that there is a lot of awareness that has to be created. Now, why do we create the awareness? Because we have to finally, reduce, reuse, repurpose. From everywhere, we have to finally go to a real purpose. 2.4% of Indian households are unelectrified. We all know that. 13% do not have the grid connectivity. 240 million Indians live in dark. Approximately 1 billion for every 1% of population it is going to take. The 1 billion cost it is going to take. Our hunger rate is 16.3%. We have to actually create awareness about the need of doing it. I also understand that, we are not exactly where we have to be. So 2030 is a target, 2050 is a target, 2070 is a target. We just have to ensure that we are on the right track, because everything cannot be changed overnight. So I can say that I see a lot of opportunity to create awareness about technology, about thoughtfulness, and about togetherness.
So Vijay is asking, anybody's take it is. Most of the organizations today use design thinking, which looks into only desirability, feasibility, and viability. Should we have a fourth lens, sustainability, aligning with all other three lenses? Please share your insights.
I think that is already there when I spoke about cradle to grave approach for the products. So right from the design stage itself, from the selection of raw material, selection of processes, selection of packing, also for products like ours to do with the, let's say, the ergonomics or the comfort of the customer. And finally, when the product has completed its life cycle, are the components, the parts of the product something that can then go back into recycle, reuse, or into what we call, which can go back to Mother Earth. There is a complete LCA, the life cycle analysis that is being done for each and every new product. Now, I know that it is not something that is being done everywhere for sure, but yes, it is being done. It is being talked about. I think as Saki mentioned, building sensitivity to it is so critical. The more sensitive the customer gets to it, the more and more this is going to happen. Today, for example, in many conscious organizations, they offer to take the packing material back. Why? Because otherwise, if it is not taken back into the system and recycled, it's creating waste. Biodegradable is the word I was searching for. So, of course, there needs to be more of it. We need to build sensitivity to it. We need to talk more about it. And I think this webinar is a small step in that direction.
Thank you, Mr. Maroria, for that. Yes, these are all the eye openers. So we are reaching to the end of the session. To share the closing remarks for the session, starting with Ms. Saki.
I would like to add to what Zurvan said. In fact, I would like to highlight one of the points, and I actually noted it for myself, is every buyer now wants to know why before your know how. And if we all consistently do it, then we are going to bring in generations of better MSMEs, better startups, and better industries. So we all have to consciously look at why am I buying it, and also see that it is profit. It's good. We need to make profits, but the profit has a purpose. I think I will also conclude it as my closing remarks. Thank you.
So one more thing is there. Mr. Sandeep, I wanted to ask because they were talking about the technology and data.
Yeah.
So in what ways Industry 4 technology can be enabler to bring in green manufacturing and decarbonization?
Zurvan just mentioned that, while there is an LCA, now artificial intelligence and specifically the data analytics, which is sitting on those, all the data, where it is coming from, that could bring in a lot of aspect of reusability, or also look at which is the nearest place for sourcing that data, and also which is the one quality of data which will really be very good. Specifically, the AI would play a major role in helping that put it in a right structure. So from a technology perspective, yeah. Someone also mentioned about predictive analytics. So that means if there is a predictive maintenance, which is again a part of a technology-based solution or a technology-based solution, that would again be helpful in terms of, reducing the energy consumption, or also seeing if the waste can be at the lowest level, and can there be a recyclability as well. So all these aspects will definitely form a good aspect of technology. And this is what is being used today. And we're also going back to our customers today saying that this is what we can do for you. And right from, seeing that there is a heat reduction solutions which are available from the process. If there is waste to energy plant, how that is being put into the system. So all these technologies are becoming very important with the use of either some data analytics, or even now people are starting about how the quantum computing will also help here. So all those aspects are playing a major role here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chandana, for that. That's a great perspective. Mr. Yogendra, coming to you, I would ask, because you were discussing about so many perspectives and analyzing the green, so how government can create sustainable manufacturing growth to promote green manufacturing?
There was a time when under CII banner we used to say that the time has come that we must organize some 45 minutes program for MDs of the company to make them more environmental conscious. Now think time has come, person like you should organize a program for the directors of Ministry of Environment and Forest and CPCB. Just tell them what is sustainability, how to pronounce, how to put a condition. If you go to a small industry, for example, I had been to Muradabad recently, they are giving a NOC and consent with general specific condition, a small unit like 100 yards only, and the condition is, which is about 30 years old plant, that 30% of area should be of green belt. So the thoughtfulness in the ministry officials or pollution board officials is not there. Continuous knocking is required. A person who is retired, I think from the corporate, they should work like a catalyst, free of cost to the CPCB chairman as a perpetuous or as a typist, then only some changes will come. Otherwise, it's a very difficult process. Any condition, any environmental experience you take, I think 50% conditions are not required in that. If I am the in charge, I will put 10 conditions, I will make sure that the industry is sustainable. Time has changed totally, but they do cutting and pasting. Same condition which they used to put in 1980, putting in 1990 and 2023.
So I'll just make a quick closing comment. We have to keep the customer at the center of all our thinking, number one. At the same time, we have to keep sensitizing the customer. We have to build that awareness. Number two, we have to build the reskilling that we talked of in our workforce and build it over there. We have to have what I term as appropriate automation. Do not try and copy a solution that is done by one, because each one's question paper is different. So we need to understand what our specific needs are, do it in a scalable way. And lastly, never forget that the planet that we have today is not what we have inherited from our parents, but we have borrowed from the future generations. So let's keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for exchanging your valuable thought on today's Green Days in Manufacturing. We request that delegates and viewers to stay connected with us on our social media handles. OEM Update is available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also download our app from Google Play and App Store. With this, we want to announce the closing of today's session. Request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Thank you and goodbye.